I love creation stories, and every culture has them. And sometimes we pay attention to the fact that in our own scriptures, there are actually two creation stories, not just one. Did you notice? This is the second. The first one is on the first day and it was good, and the second day and it was good. This is the second creation story in Genesis. This is the story that describes the way in which God lifts up soil, and as a potter shaping clay, shapes the first human being. I love the story of God breathing life into us, into earth, into a creation that then takes on life of its own and becomes the source of other life. We become co-creators with God. But I hope this story also reminds us that we are created, that we are of the earth. And from the earth we come, and to the earth we shall return. That we belong to God and we belong to the earth. They do not belong to us. We're made of the dust. We're made of stars, and we'll return. And between now and then, we have responsibilities to care and tend for this creation which sustains us, body and soul, as part of God's creation, as part of God's goodness. This is our invitation. We are interdependent on one another, and not just in this room, and not just on God. As Paul goes to Athens and speaks to people who are not part of either Jewish or Christian traditions, he finds a commonality in a temple, an altar to an unknown God. We are mostly people who don't till the soil much anymore, right? You know, we have some farmers. Few. Where's Jim Stuckey? We have a few that still farm. We have a few that still garden. We have a few that have their gifts that digs fingers into soil. But as urban dwellers, it's easy for us to be removed from the more natural world. It's easy for us not to think about all the plasticware and all the styrofoam and all the trash we generate. It's easy for us to forget that we are made of the earth and we belong to it and we have responsibilities to it as faithful people. In the same ways that we are connected to the earth, Paul reminds the people of Athens that we are connected to one another. That even if we belong to different traditions, we have this commonality that we belong to one another, that we are each incomplete without the other. This phrase has been coming to me in the last couple of weeks that I want to share with you, and I'm going to be exploring it in the weeks to come. The phrase is rooted and reaching. I'm not sure why it came to me, but as I've been in the process of learning about this congregation, learning about your history, learning about your vision, I am very aware of the historic significance, the historic roots of this church. We can't miss it, right? Lincoln's pew, Tiffany windows, the Brahmbach organ. But I also hear the stories about this church not having been an abolitionist church. But 5 decades later, when there was a race riot and there was violence in the city, this session and this church's pastor took a stand for racial justice more than 100 years ago. Unfortunately, we still have work to do. In a week when floodwaters have washed across the Gulf Coast here, even more floodwaters have washed across Southeast Asia. Many more people have died. The devastation can be overwhelming. In a week when people who call themselves Christians say hateful things about cousins and kin, we're challenged to remind each other that we are connected, that we are interdependent, that we need one another, that as Christ's body is broken for us, all of us, our lives are to be poured out for the well-being of all creation. We are rooted in this tradition, but we also must reach our branches wide, that the roots die without the leaves, that the branches and leaves, the photosynthesis that happens there, are what transform the significance of our history into action for today and vision for tomorrow. The trees of our tradition need both roots and branches. It is not enough to be one without the other. We travel out of this space, out of this room, and meet other people. Other people make their way through these spaces downtown. And our challenge, our invitation, is to be rooted and reaching, to recognize the ground from which our bodies are drawn and the breath that breathes into us is the same ground and the same breath. And neither are ours, but they are God's. So all that we are and all that we have is meant for God and God's creation. In the same way, all are welcome at this table, yes? All are welcome in God's creation. All creation is good. All that draws breath. God moves in us, and in God we have our being and becoming. May we be rooted, but also reaching. And when we are afraid of either, may we be reminded that all belong to God. Amen.